So what we're dealing with is what's called non-competitive contracts. That means that you didn't have to apply for a contract, you didn't have to apply for a grant application, you were awarded this, but because of that, there's details that are not filled out yet in the system that you're going to need to do. So what happens after your grant is awarded? First of all, the agency staff develops contract parameters, things such as payment and claim information, reporting information, things like that. So they set that up in the background, and then they send it to you to get it updated. And that's just kind of the second step here. Contract details need to be updated and reviewed. Now that can be done by the program staff, the contract staff, or your staff at your organization. And that's what's going to happen here. Your staff at your organization is going to work on and fill out the details of the contract. When I say details, I really mean the budget, most importantly, but also the work plan. Once that's done, it might bounce back and forth between you, your organization, and the program group. Maybe they need to make some tweaks. Maybe certain things aren't exactly the way they wanted. Eventually, there'll be a little back and forth, and eventually that will, everybody will agree, okay, the contract looks good, let's go get it signed. So it's sent to the contractor, you, for electronic signature. So that's another task you'll have. Somebody at your organization will have to log in and sign the contracts electronically. And there's no paper, there's no mailing it, there's no printing it out. It's simply a task in the system and checking a box and reading a few agreements and agreeing to it. So that's the process of signature. And then eventually it goes through the other signature statuses in the state. So the Department of Health will have to sign. They have a representative who will sign the contract. And depending on the size of the contract, they would have to go to the Attorney General's office and then to the State Comptroller's office to get signed. So those, again, are all done electronically, and that'll happen through our system as well. Okay, so your organization will reference you as the grantee is going to have two different tasks to do in the system. Not at the same time, but one after another. So contract information requested, all of you now have this task right now. So in this case, the program manager or contract manager has reviewed the contract, and they're asking for more information. Like we said, it's probably the budget and the work plan, and that's what it is for yours. So you will have to fill out the budget and work plan, and there's a few other pages you'll have to deal with as well. So that's the first task that you all have right now, contract information requested. Another task that will come along, again, once all the details have been worked out, is the contract signature required status. So again, that's when somebody, a representative from your organization, will have to sign it electronically in the system. So just kind of a simplified diagram of these statuses, just to show you that we go back and forth between statuses. So it was at program manager review, and then the program manager, kind of hard to draw a straight line here, sent it to you in contract information requested. You'll fill it out and you'll send it back to them. It could go back and forth. They can decide, all right, it looks good, let's send it down to the contract manager, and then let's send it over to you to get signed again. So we can go back and forth between any of these statuses until everybody says, we have a good contract, everything looks good, let's get it signed. Okay, another thing that is important to understand is grantee user roles, the accounts that you're allowed to set up in our system for your organization. So I'm going to talk about it here, I'm going to mention it, I'm going to log in and use these roles in the system, but after the contract part or the meat of this webinar is done, if anybody wants to stay on and discuss roles and see how to add roles and users, we can do that as well. Remember that for the end, that I will walk you through setting up new accounts in the system. All right, but we do have a couple different roles that you'll have to have in the system. So first of all, I'm not going to go in order here. The first person that was set up in your organization is this, the Grantee Delegated Administrator. That person is the one who you put on your sheet that you mailed into us, your registration form that you had notarized and mailed into us, and you told us that these one or two people are the ones that would kind of manage your account in our system. So they are the people that can add or edit user accounts, and they can manage pre-qualification, which is called the document vault. Now, the good thing about those of you on this call, if you're a municipality, if you are a governmental entity, you do not have to worry about pre-qualification or document vault. So that you can ignore that part of it. But it is important to know that this person, the grantee delegated administrator, can add or edit user accounts. So mostly adding. There's not much you'll do for editing except for maybe changing maybe somebody got married and they changed their last name or their phone number changed or something. That's what edit would mean. There is an ability or seemingly there's an ability to change someone's role in the system, but don't do that. That doesn't really work the way you would think, and there's no changing someone's role. There's only adding new accounts with new roles. So it's perfectly acceptable if one person has more than one role in your system. That's fine. So the grantee delegated administrator, maybe you're a small organization, and the admin is also the person who's going to sign the contracts. That's fine. They just need to have 2 accounts, or 2 or 3, or whatever it happens to be. So these other roles, grantee. This is someone who can work on a contract, save details of a contract. They can save the budget and the work plan, things like that, but they cannot sign a contract. So they would also receive any emails or tasks from the system. So you might have somebody like this logging in the role of grantee to work on your contract details, enter your budget and your work plan and things like that. But again, they can't sign it. When it comes time to signing, somebody at your organization who's allowed to sign contracts will have to be in the role of Grantee Contract Signatory. So you can see they have all the abilities that the grantee has. They can save application information or contract information. They can save the budget, the work plan, and things like that. And obviously, the main thing here is they can sign contracts. So there must be someone in this role for every organization. Now, I do say must. You could have someone in this role down here too as well, the grantee system administrator. In our system, they basically do the same exact thing. So what I'm saying is you could have someone in the role of grantee, but you definitely need to have someone in one of these 2 roles, grantee contract signatory or grantee system administrator, because one of these people has to sign the contract. Now, why would you have a breakdown of different people, grantee and grantee contract signatory? Maybe you have staff that will work on the budget and the work plan, and the person that's signing it is a different person. You can have more than 1 grantees. You can have 5 or 10 if you want. Maybe you have somebody who works on the work plan and somebody else that works on the budget. That's fine. They can be logged in at the same time even, working on different pages in the system. That's fine. But when it comes time to sign, again, you have to have somebody in one of these roles, grantee contract signatory or grantee system administrator. And I know it sounds like I'm harping on it, I've said it a bunch of times, but this is like the #1 call that we get at the help desk. People call or email and say, hey, I've got this contract, but it doesn't let me sign it because you're not in the right role. So we want to make sure that everybody understands roles and understands who can do what and at what time. So again, I'll revisit that as we go through logged into the system, and I will at the end of the webinar, talk about it in a little more in detail if somebody wants to. So you are going to have tasks in the system. Now, because this is a non-competitive, the system doesn't really know who to send the task to yet. So what I'm going to be showing you about tasks actually won't really be relevant to you unless we do something in the system or you do something in the system that I'll show when we log in. But just to understand, the system works on the aspect of tasks. So when something's been sent back to your organization, which it has right now, somebody can log in and we'll have a task. It says you're in the role of grantee, go on and work on the work plan and budget. So if you do get a task in the system, you'd be notified by an email from the system. And it's easy enough to find it. This is why we do it, because it's simply on your home page. You click on View My Tasks or Open Tasks, and you can now see what's been assigned to you and click on it. So the idea of being assigned tasks makes it very easy to get to and work on the document or contract that you're dealing with. But maybe someone who is assigned the task is on maternity leave or vacation and somebody else needs to grab it and work on that task. That's fine too. If you're in the same role as that person, anybody in the same role can work on the task. So let's say you're a contract signatory, or let's say you're a grantee, and something came in for somebody else in your office and they're not available, but we need to work on it right away. You can search for that task or search for the contract and work on it because you have the same role. So that's tasks, which will be not as likely as this next step, which is just searching for your contract or even an application through the search buttons on the top of the screen. So you can see I'm pointing to 3 different boxes here. Let's see, I'll put the outline above it. Applications, contracts, and tasks. So you can search on any one of those types of things and find your contract. You can search on applications and still find your contract. You can search on contracts and find it, and you can search on tasks and find it. So I'm going to show that when I get into the system. And the previous page where I was referencing My Tasks, that's down here in the bottom. And you can see that there's a little button that says Open Tasks. If you were assigned a task, you'd be able to click on that and see it that way. Okay? So again, I just had these 6 or 7 slides to go through quickly, and now I want to actually get into the system and work on what we were sent. We're going to go to the website grantsgateway.ny.gov, and if you look at my bar up on the top here, it says https grantsgateway.ny.gov, and then a bunch of other text after it, IntelliGrants, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to type all that. All you have to type is grantsgateway.ny.gov in your address bar, and it'll go here. I want to point out, though, that a lot of people are in the habit of typing www when they get to a website, and if you were to do that, like I'm doing right now, you're going to get an error, and it's saying that this site is not secure. So don't go to the www version of the website because it is not secure. The only secure part of it is if you go to the address without the www. So again, it's just grantsgateway.ny.gov, and it is a HTTPS, which means it's a secure website with an SSL certificate, and what that means is every interaction, every transaction on the website is encrypted between you and the server. Okay? So I've gone to grantsgateway.ny.gov. I'm not logged in yet, but I want to point out a few things here just so you realize. Down here in the bottom right is registration. Now, if you're here because you've received an award, your organization has already been registered because you wouldn't have been able to receive an award in our system if you weren't. Next is notification. You can see I'm going right to left here. Next is notification. This is if you want to sign up to be alerted of any new grant opportunities that are posted in the system, you can go here, fill out your first name and email, first name, last name, organization, and email, and select the types of grant opportunities you'd be interested in learning about. And if I was to select all, or let's say I selected only environmental supports, every time a grant opportunity that's been targeted towards environmental supports is released, you would get an email letting you know about it and allowing you to click on it and read about it. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for actually dealing with contracts that you've already been awarded. You could also browse and search for any grant opportunities that are out there. Browse is just a list as a whole. You can see I could click on it and go through and click on the grant opportunity name and actually read about it and get the RFA. I could search as well. The search allows me, let's say I wanted to find out about this one. I could search on the word fluoridation if I wanted to and find this grant opportunity. So I just wanted to point out what the portal is for. The portal is for allowing you to, people that haven't registered yet or aren't logged in, to search for and find information about grants. What you would be doing, though, is when you went to grantsgateway.ny.gov, you'd be clicking up here in the top left to the Grants Gateway login. And in here, you'll fill out your username and your password. So again, you may have more than one role with the system, which means you would have more than one account. If your name is Janet Smith, you might have jsmith1 for your delegated admin and jsmith2 for your contract, grantee role, and jsmith3 for the signatory if you want. So again, the system doesn't care how many accounts you set up for each person. They have to be different accounts. You can use the same email address. You can use even the same password if you would like. You just have different numbers or different account names. Now, I can't do this in our live system. I'm going to go to a test system here, but it's going to look exactly the same. So I'm now going to log in here, and I'm going to log in as someone at an organization in the grantee role. So my name is Jeff Grantee, and I'll log in, and you can see I'm logged in here now with the role of grantee. So remember I said that you would have tasks, or you could have tasks. You'll notice as I scroll down, I do not have tasks. There's nothing here that shows my task, so that means the award that I received was not sent to me as a task. And again, this is normal. We expect this because the system doesn't know who to send it to if you have multiple users. So that's fine, though. I'll be able to find the contract that was awarded to me. So just to point out what's going on in the screen, though, we have the welcome message on top that confirms what role I'm logged in as. We have view available opportunities. That's where you would start if you wanted to apply for a grant. And then we have my inbox. You can ignore the inbox. The inbox is simply a copy of any emails that you might have received from the system. And you can see in my case, it's just welcome to the system, basically. It doesn't have any substance related to the contracts or applications you might be working with. So you can ignore these items on the home page, and what you really want to do is search up in the top here. So from the top bar, we can see we have home, which is where we are, the portal, which we just looked at, and again, I can search for applications, contracts, tasks, and then progress reports is something you're not going to have to worry about, or at least not right now. Progress reports is related to your tasks that you would have in the, I shouldn't say tasks in this sense, your objectives and performance measures that you would have in your work plan. So that's not something we'd be covering today. So you could search either on applications or contracts. Contracts really makes the most sense. So I click on contracts. You can see I can fill out a couple of options here. I can search for it based on the grant opportunity name, which is Early Intervention. I could search on for the grant opportunity ID, which is EIADM1. I could search on different statuses. I could search on the contract type, contract number, if you know your contract number, or I could just leave it blank and search for all contracts. And that probably makes sense for the majority of those of you here on this call, because if this is your first contract or you only have one or two, it's going to be easy to find it if you search on blank. So if I click here, if I leave everything blank and just hit search, I'm going to find more than just one, but you probably won't. So I've left it blank, I've hit search, and the results will be at the bottom, and you can see that it found 7 contracts for me. Still, that's easy enough for me to figure out, and I know that it's this one right here that we're worrying about today. So this one that I received with today's date is in contract info requested, and if I was to click on it, you can see it's at EIADM1, Early Intervention Administrative 1, and I was awarded $77,359. So again, that's one easy way of searching for it. Just click on contracts, make sure everything's blank. If it's not already, just hit clear, and then hit the search button. But you could work on, you could search on other criteria as well. So if I put in the word intervention here and hit search, you can see I found it. And obviously the same thing would happen if I search for EIADM. So it doesn't have to be complete. It can be portions of it. If I knew it was, you know, it had the word ADM in it, or the text ADM in my ID, I could hit search, and you can see I found it that way as well. So it's important to remember that, because people who don't have it as a task are going to need to find it, and they'll have to use this contract search to do it. Now, you could have used applications, you could have used tasks, but contracts really is the easiest way to do it. All right, so now I've found it. Let's click on it and see what we have to do. So I've clicked on the application number, not on my organization name, because that would bring me information about my organization. I want to get into the contract, which I have. So I've clicked on it, and I'm now in the contract, and you can see I have a unique document ID number. So this is actually the application number. Even though you didn't apply, that's the unique number that our system uses, is the application number to track it along. So I'm DOH 01 EIADM1 2016 number 60, which means I'm the 60th one that was set up here. All right, you'll notice I clicked on this details button and it opens and closes it. Really not too much more information here for you. We know that it's an application or a contract. It's a contract. We know the name of my organization. We know I'm in the role of grantee. And you do want to remember this, though, it's in the status of contract info requested. So if you remember back to the PowerPoint, that was the first status I talked about, where they are asking you to fill out some details. My contract period is 10/1 through 9/30/2017. And we can see a couple other more lines of detail here on the bottom. My contract number is DOH01C31555, so your number is going to be obviously different here. Then this -3450000, that's just the department ID, but all of these together make your contract number. So if you're ever talking to Department of Health or emailing, you might want to tell them what you're referencing. I'm referencing this contract number, or I'm referencing this application number. They can certainly find it based on your organization as well, but it might be easier, it is easier just to give them that number. So there's nothing I can do on this page. You can see it just kind of shows me information on the main page here. Where I do my work is in this Forms menu right here, which we'll get to in just a minute. I want to point out the other pages as well, or the other options. So these green buttons up here, next is Status Change. When I'm done filling this out, I can submit it back to the program at the Department of Health by clicking this Apply Status button here. So I'll do that later. Management Tools, there's one option here to add edit people that we'll look at. And that way I can actually add it as a task for people. And then progress reports and related documents. You might have remembered before that I mentioned about progress reports. You can ignore that for now. If it's something that the program ends up using, they wouldn't use it until after the contracts are signed and awarded and executed. Okay, so I do want to work in this Forms menu, and you can hover on it and see the options, but it's a lot better just to click on the word Forms menu. If you click on it, the whole menu shows here in your page. So I'm going to go through and point out what all these pages mean, but you're not going to be doing work in many of these pages, or I should say in all of these pages. So I'm going to go to Contract Document Properties and explain what this is. This is just what makes up the contract that you're about to fill out. There's nothing in here that you need to enter any information on or fill out. It's simply just an example or the individual documents that make up the contract. So I clicked on that item called Contract Document Properties. It brought me to this page, and there's a sample master contract. Ignore that. There's nothing you need to fill out. It's basically an example of a New York State grant contract that includes all the different options in it. So it's really a very large document with a lot of things that really don't apply to you. So next is the attachment A1, the program-specific terms and conditions. If I was to click on this view file, I would see, I think it's an 11-page document. That's the terms and conditions that you're going to be agreeing to. So you can click on it here individually if you wanted to, but it's going to be part of the contract that we're going to be previewing in a few minutes anyway. And the same goes for these attachments E and M on the bottom. So attachment E is your objectives and tasks, which we'll look at in detail pretty soon. And attachment M is the MWBE, Minority Women Business Entity Program, or policy, I should say. So that's an attachment that's part of your contract. It's part of all contracts, and as we go through, you'll see that you guys actually have a 0% goal for MWBE, so really what's in here is kind of irrelevant to these contracts. So basically, this is just telling us what makes up this particular contract that you're going to be working on. So there's no need to really look at this page. I only did it just because people are probably going to click and wonder what it is, but really you can ignore contract document properties. Okay, so we clicked on Contract Document Properties. You can ignore these next 3 pages. Print application, you didn't apply for anything, so there's nothing to see. Full version of RFP, there was no RFP here, so you can ignore that. And then application versions, again, you didn't apply, so ignore that. So the first part where we actually have to put in information is here under Program Information. And you can see there's a red hand here under Contract Information. So whenever you see that red stop sign or red hand, it means there's an error on that page. And if I scroll down, you'll see there's another one too under Expenditure Summary. Why under Expenditure Summary? We'll see in a few minutes, but it's because I was awarded $77,000 and my budget right now adds up to 0 because I haven't done anything yet. So let's go to Contract Information. So I clicked on that, and it gives me the error that says, please review and save this page for accuracy. So all this is that on page 1 of the contract, it has 3 different addresses for your organization. It has your primary mailing, your contract payment, and your contract mailing address. And the system doesn't know which one is which. If they're all the same, that's fine. It's very easy for you to hit save and be done with it. But if they're different, you can tell or you would know anyway, but if you click this drop down, you can see that there might be different addresses. Now in my case, there are not. There's only one address, so there's nothing that I would have to select. But if you did have a different address, you'd have to click on it and select it and then hit save. So everybody has to hit save on this page, regardless if they've made a change or not. But this is you confirming, yep, these are my correct addresses. So now that I've hit save, that error message has gone away. I can go back to the Forms menu, and I can see that the stop sign is gone, and I can move on to the next page. So I'm going to go in order here, and we're going to go to Project Site Addresses. So you can see it asks me for a name and then address information. And the name we're going to put in here is what the program is giving us, which is Early Intervention Administration. Okay, that's actually not going to show up anywhere in the contract, but you can see it's a required field here, so you do have to fill it out. Now, this is not a statewide project, it's for your county. So you're going to put in the address of basically your county, your main office, basically. It really doesn't matter because it's not going to show up on a contract anywhere, but we do need it. So I'm just going to put in 123 Main Street here, and I'm just going to say I'm in Albany, and my fake zip code. Notice there's a box for regional council and for agency-specific region, but both of these are not required. So there's nothing for you to do here. You can leave them blank and just hit save. Okay, so I've hit save. I get the green light that says page information. The information has been saved, and it's happy. I would get an error if I forgot to fill out, let's say, the name description. Because of that red asterisk, if I hit save, it gives me an error and says that's a required field. So realize about these errors that you do have to take care of them before you send your contract back to the state agency. So it's fine if you leave this error and you go home tonight and you log back in tomorrow and everything you've done so far will be there, but you'll have to fix those errors before you can send it back to us. All right, so that was easy enough. That's the project site address. I'll go back to the Forms menu and go to the next page, which is program-specific questions. If this was a grant application, there'd be a lot of questions that you had to answer. You know, describe your project and your program and your experience and things like that. But in this case, all this is asking you that you agree to the approved work plan. This is basically making sure that you're saying, yep, I've read it and I agree to it. There's two things it's asking for you. Your project title, which again is that Early Intervention Administration. We want you all to write that for your project title. And then, of course, you're probably going to want to say yes to that you agree to the approved work plan, which is attachment E, which we'll look at in a few minutes. And we'll hit save. Okay, so I got the nice green light, and I'm happy with that, and I can move forward, go back to the Forms menu. All right, so now we get into really the meat of our application or our contract, and it's our budget. So the two big things that you have to fill out is your budget and your work plan here. So scrolling through the budget, you can see it's broken down into a bunch of different sections. This is called an expenditure budget. Expenditure budgets are personal services, which is salary and fringe, and then non-personal services, which is contractual, travel, equipment, space property rent, space property owned, utilities, operating expenses, and then kind of a catch-all other. You can see that each one has not only a detail page, but also a narrative page. So salary detail, salary narrative, fringe detail, fringe narrative, and so on. So I don't know your program. I don't know the details of a real early intervention program. I don't know what fits in a realistic budget for, in my case, $77,359. So I'm going to kind of fake this. But the whole point of this is just to show you how to do it, not what to enter in your specific case. So I'm going to start with salary. I'm going to go here to salary and click on it. And let's say, again, I'm going to be very generic here. I'm going to say, what am I going to say? I'm just going to say employee 1. So you're going to have to give it, obviously, a real name. And you might want to describe, what they do here, because this role responsibility will not show up on the contract. And I'll prove that to you when we look at the contract, that only what's in this line will show, not what's here. All right, we do want you to fill out each individual person. So each line will be one person in title. Okay? Doesn't necessarily have to be their name, although check with the program and make sure that I'm telling the truth there. But it does have to be, obviously, their title. So let's say, again, I only have $77,000 I can work with here. So let's say, again, I'm going to use round numbers just to make the calculations easier for myself. So let's say their salary is $50,000, and they work 40 hours a week, and they're funded 100%, or no, let's say they're funded 50%, meaning 50% of their job is working on the EI program. And they're funded for 12 months. I forget, is this 12? I believe it is. And then the total grant funds, so what are they getting from this? So if they're 50%, we're asking for $25,000. Okay? That means there's another $25,000 coming from somewhere else. Actually, no, that's not true. Sorry. The other funds are funds related to this project. So what we're saying here is, even though they have a salary of $50,000, only $25,000 is really what's going towards this program. They do something else with the other 50% of their time. So there's no other funds related to this person or this role because it's not related to the EI project. So I'll hit save. Okay, so I've hit save, and it gives me the green light that everything's saved. And I can go down and see that my category adds up to $25,000, meaning I'm asking for $25,000 from the grant so far. All right, but certainly you probably have more than one employee that you're filling out here. So now that I've hit save, I have an add button as well. That add button wasn't there before. So now I can click on add, and I'll get another blank entry, and I'll do employee 2. Someone asked, what if there's more than one employee for the same title? I think they want you to still call it out separately. If they're all exactly the same title and the same percentages, technically you could do it, but I would ask you to clarify that with the program. And that may actually be in our budget form, and in fact, let me look at this. So this document that you've been provided, or will be provided, is the budget instructions, and I just happen to open up this Word document here. So one thing to note, all expenses that support the program should be listed regardless of funding source. So again, in my example, my program, I was awarded $77,359, but let's say my program actually costs $150,000 to maintain throughout the year. If that's the case, we want to know where that other $130 whatever thousand dollars is, where it comes from. So that's why we want you to track all expenses to the program. And I honestly don't know here. Let's see. So each position should be entered separately. You know, it's in the first line here. So I think they really do want you to enter each one separately, even if they have the same. So please refer to this document before you go and fill this out. In a minute, I'm going to go into the salary narrative detail, and it'll ask me for the title, name of the incumbent, description of the position, and so on. So we'll see where that can be filled out as well. Okay, I'm back to my grant contract here. So employee 2, again, we'll say one person. Let's say they have a salary of $100,000 and they work 40 hours, but they are only working 10% for 12 months. So that means we're asking for $10,000 from them. Again, some of their 90 other % of their job is not related to this, so I don't have to put anything out for total other funds. So I hit save. Now you can see my total is up to $35,000. All right? So you know what, I'm going to try to cheat here and look at this other budget and see what other lines would be in there. So this travel, Just looking at some options here. Looks like you guys could use all. There's costs that are not allowed here. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of make it up as we go through here. All right, so I've done my personal services, but remember there's that narrative. If I go back to the Forms menu, I could hover on it and click on narrative, or I could just click on the Forms menu itself and get there. I'm just going to hover and click right now. And again, if we go back to the guidance that was given you in this Word document, I go back up here to personal services, we wanted to list the title, name of the incumbent, and so on. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to write here is my salary narrative. But of course, you will fill out what's being asked of you on that Word document that I just showed. So you can see it allows up to 4,000 characters here. I can keep typing, and it'll fill out how many characters I've used so far. And you can see right now I'm up to 406 characters. So there's a good amount of room here to type it out, but sometimes you have to be a little creative to shorten some words or sentences to make sure that you fit within those 4,000 characters. Okay, so I'm going to hit save, and I've saved my narrative. I'm going to answer a couple questions that just came up. Hold on a second here. I answered that one. How should you budget if they spend 100% of the time in the program, but the grant amount doesn't cover all the expenses? I'll show you an example of that. That's a good example. That's a good question. And then where did I get the general budget instructions from? This Word document hopefully has been sent to you. If not, we'll obviously arrange to get that to happen. So I assumed maybe it was, but maybe it hasn't been yet. If someone from the program is here, they can type it to me and let me know as well. So someone asked, what if someone is 100% of the project, but the grant isn't covering their whole salary? So let's do that. I'll go back to salary, and I'm going to add a third person. And let's say they're part-time or whatever, but so I'm going to click on Add. I want to stay under my 77,000 here for my example. So let's say employee 3, here is what they do. Here is their role, and there's one person, and let's say that they're $15,000, and they work 40 hours. Let's say they work, 15 hours. They're 100% funded, and 12 months, so we're asking for 15,000, or let's say 15,000 of their salary is going towards this project. But the grant is only covering 10,000. So there's another 5,000, and we want to know that there is another 5,000. Because now if I hit save, so what I'm saying is I'm asking for a total now of 50,000. So those first two that asked 40 and now this 10. And if I go to my final page here, my budget, if I go to Forms menu and all the way down to the budget summary, which we have an error, of course, because we still don't add up to 77,359. But if I go down here, we can see that I've been awarded 77,359. My totals that I'm asking for is $45,000 right now, but I do have $5,000 in other funds covering the rest of my project. So what's going to happen here is my total project cost is going to be here on this side in total. So that should be what your EI program costs your organization for the year. And it's going to be a combination of what I'm asking for from the grant, which is here, which equals what I was awarded, and then what is the other that's being contributed towards that person's salary or whatever the line item is. Okay? So I'm going to go back to the Forms menu. Again, I could have hovered, but I just clicked on it. And I'm going to go through some of the other options. You can see Fringe is another personal service section. It pretty much looks like some of the other sections we're going to have. So there's the Fringe description, justification, amount, and then other. So I'm not going to fill that out because a lot of them look the same. I'll give you a couple of other examples here. So let's say travel. Again, I don't know what's realistic in your program or any programs. I'm just going to call this travel item 1, and here is the justification. Again, the justification, the second line, will not show up on the contract. So if you have some details that need to show up on the contract, you could do something like this or whatever, you know, put it up there. So let's say for travel, we're doing, I don't know, $5,000. We're doing, let's say, $10,000 worth of travel. $5,000 of it we're going to ask for the grant to cover, and $5,000 is covered from some other funding. And I'll hit save. Okay, so that's travel. Again, if you had a second line, you could click on add, and it'll give you a blank page, and you can add that up. All right, I'll go back to the forms menu, and we'll do, let's see, is equipment allowed? Go down here to equipment. Okay, there's pieces of equipment, so that's good. I can come up with some things here. Again, I'm totally making this up, so if these numbers are completely realistic, I'm just here to show you how to do it, not what to put in. So I did travel, but I do need my travel narrative as well. So I click on travel narrative. Here is my narrative. Yours will be a lot more detailed than that. I've hit save. I'm now going to go down to equipment. And again, don't worry about the amount, just there's number one, and here is our justification. And are we purchasing or renting it? I guess we're purchasing it. And let's say this is a $15,000 piece of equipment, or it's a $20,000 piece of equipment, and I'm asking for 15, and I have 5 from some other sources. Okay? And then I'll go down to Forms menu and do my equipment narrative. Again, here is my narrative. And you can see that in equipment narrative, there's also a justification for any exceptional equipment purchase rental costs as related to the program needs. So you can see, I don't believe that one is a required field. If I hit save here, it should be fine with this box, and it was. So, but just realize that there is a separate box or a different section for justification or narrative when you come to equipment. So back to the Forms menu. And this is not the way you'll be doing it, but I need to know how much I need to add up to my $77,359. So right now I've got $65,000, so I need $2,359. So that's easy enough. I'll just go to, no, not $2,000, $12,359. So I'm going to go to, let's say, utilities, and I'll say item and justification, and what did I say, 2359, I believe, and I'll hit save on that. You know, this is probably a good one where my where other numbers come from somewhere else. Let's say that it's another $15,000 that come from some other funds. Okay, so if my math is right, if I go back here, I should be $10,000 short. And I am, so that's good. So let me just go and add another line for $10,000. Let's see, I'll add it under other. And I'll just call this, here is another item, here is the justification, and it's $10,000 from the grant, and let's say it's another $13,427 from some other funding that we have. So I've hit save, and then finally, I want to do the justification for other, or I'm sorry, narrative for other. Here is my narrative. So I'll hit save. So how do I know that I'm done and that I've filled out my budget correctly? If I go back to the Forms menu, you want to make sure that you've filled out a narrative for every line item. How do I know that I did? Well, it says my name and when I saved it here, and it shows me a little icon that says we've typed something in here. So the system knows that I've typed something in this page, and that's a good sign. So if I went here to, which one did I miss? Utilities. You'll notice that I filled out utilities, but I didn't fill out a narrative here. So you would want to come back here and make sure that you fill out that narrative. And hit save on that. So again, the question came up from some people, do I have to do this all in one sitting? No. I could log out right now, I could come back tomorrow, log in, and be able to pick up wherever I left off. I'll never be able to send this to the state agency, back to the Department of Health, until I fill out all the pages, though. And there's one more section that we didn't do yet, and that is the work plan. All right, so I want to go to expenditure summary and see how everything adds up. You notice our error message is gone. That's because it all adds up to what I was awarded, $77,359. So in my really bogus example here, I have $45,000 in salary, I have $5,000 in travel, $15,000 in equipment, $23,559 in utilities, $10,000 in other, and I'm asking for $77,359. My total project, though, is $120,786 because, of course, I've got these $5,000, $5,000, $15,000, and $13,427 here for a total of an additional $43,427 in my project. So my project is $120,786, but I'm asking for $77,359. Someone asked, please explain match funds. Don't worry about that. A match requirement is not required here. So just to know what match means, in the realm of grants, sometimes grants are given to you with a requirement for a match, which means we'll give you $100,000 here, but you have to come up with $25,000 from some other source. We're not going to give you your $100,000 unless you get that $25,000, 25% match. So it would have calculated, it would have said you're required to have a match of 25% on your whole budget or on specific budget lines. That's not the case for us here. Match is not required. We just care about other funds here. We want to make sure that your whole project cost is noted here and what you're asking for in grant funds. Let me address a couple other questions. Will there always be an error message if something was done incorrectly or not completed? Yes, there'll always be an error message if something was not completed, but not the detail pages, not the narrative pages, because those are not required. So it's really up to you to make sure that you did those. And someone asked, do we use one box for personal service narrative for all positions listed? Yes, that's a good question. You'll notice if I go back to narrative, even though I have 3 salary sections here, there's only one salary narrative. So this narrative needs to address all 3 people or all 10 people or whatever you have in your salary box, in your salary portion of the budget. Okay, so those were some questions that were asked of me. If there are no other questions about budgets, we'll get moving on to the work plan. Again, remember, I just threw out bogus numbers and bogus items. It's up to you to really come up with what's really part of your program. And I might have been totally way off base in some of the numbers I used, but use this for how to do it, not what to put in. Okay. So, what I'm going to do here, let's take a look at a preview of our contract. Even though it's not complete yet, because we know we have to do our work plan overview form and our objectives and tasks here, I want to show you what our contract looks like so far. Okay, so I do need to do my work plan overview, and I do need to do my objectives and tasks. But before I do that, let's take a look at what our application or what our contract is looking like right now. So that's still in the forms menu. If I scroll down here to contract, I can see there's contract versions and contract preview. So if there's any other questions about budget, we'll get to them later. You don't want to look at contract versions yet. If I click on it, you'll see there are no items I can click on. What contract versions is when it comes time for signature, it's going to save a PDF in our system forever, essentially, of what the contract looked like when it was unsigned, what it looked like once you signed it, what it looked like when the agency signed it, and so on. So that'll be in here as a link. And finally, there'll be a contract executed, and the final contract would be found right here. Of course, we're not that far yet here, so there's nothing in this list. But I can still preview my contract, what it's going to look like, by clicking this contract preview button right here. Okay, so here's my contract. Do I want to open it? Yep. So remember, this is not a complete contract because we haven't done our work plan yet, but let's take a look at what it looks like so far. So Department of Health is, of course, the agency that's giving me this contract. Here's my contract number. Remember, it was 31555. This is a multi-year agreement. Let me scroll down here. So this obviously is fake information here, my contract identification number. Agency information is there. So those three addresses, remember I had to pick, the first thing I did was verify that the addresses are correct. Well, here they are. If I had a different address for contractor payment, the X would not be there, and it would be listed here, whatever the new address is. In my case, I'm a not-for-profit, and I should have a charity's registration number. In your case, you're going to be a municipality, and you don't have to worry about that. Okay, page 2 is the terms, the term and period. So you notice this is multi-year from 10/1/2016 to 9/30/2021. And I should have mentioned this before, but what I filled out for my budget is only for year 1. Everything we're doing right now is for year 1. The assumption is that year 2 is going to be $77,359, and year 3, 4, and 5 is also going to be that. Now, that doesn't mean that that's exactly the way it's going to be. And if there's modifications requested in the future, that's something that you can deal with in our system in a modification request, where you can modify the budget or the work plan. That may not be the case here. That may not be something that this program can do, but I'm just letting you know that's, if you're wondering what the differences are from the different years, they can be changed or they can be modified. Next year, when we come around here, we'll have another $77,359 to add to my budget. And maybe my budget is different because I have different people or different positions, or the equipment I bought this year I don't need to buy again next year, so my budget might be different. But it'll inherit what I filled out today and use that as a starting point for next year. But that's something we wouldn't have to worry about until, what's the period again, 10/1? So maybe next June or July, probably more like June, you'd be working on that. Okay, you can see funding sources. This is just letting us know that both the state grant and federal grant money is coming in to fund this program. It's nothing you need to worry about, but as far as the state goes, they need to know that. So that was page 2. Page 3 is a list of what's included in this document. So I mentioned that attachment A1, the program-specific terms and conditions. It's an 11-page document that you're going to be agreeing to. So we can look at that. Just add something that I think I wanted to mention I didn't. Why is current contract period only for this grant year? Because that's the period we're in right now. The one we're filling out is just for this particular year. If I go back, let me just go back to this page here to point out something. The contract term is the whole length of the contract, which is this 5 years, 10/1/2016 to 9/30/21. The contract period should be 10/1/2016 to 9/30/2017. But you'll notice here it goes to 2021. You might think that's a mistake, but no, it's not. It's just the way that we need to show it in our SFS system, our financial system, and that's what the State Comptroller's Office wants to see. So this is not the way we think of it. This is not right, because our period is really the first year, 10/1/2016 to 9/30/2017. But you know that is broken down here, and we do know that the current period is this. So there's a little disconnect between those two dates. Ignore it. Don't worry about it. It's correct. It's just the way it needs to be shown in our system for financial reasons. Okay, so again, page 3 is the kind of table of contents. Your budget, of course, is going to be in here. The work plan is going to be in here, which we haven't done yet. The payment and reporting schedule is going to be in here, which you didn't look at yet. And then there's 2 attachments. Attachment E is going to be the details of your work plan, which we'll look at. And attachment M is the MWBE. And this is why I wanted to come here first, because I wanted you to look at attachment E before we do our work plan. I'll scroll down. Page 4 is the signature page. So who from the Department of Health signed it? Obviously nobody has right now. But realize these are electronic signatures. So it's not like there's going to be a cursive signature here or something in blue pen. It's going to be just printed by the system. But behind that signature is the fact that the person who signed it logged in from a secure ID with their username and their password, and they've certified that they're allowed to sign on behalf of their organization and so on. So down here would be the contractor name. Now this is just a bogus contractor name here. And then your name or whoever at your organization signed it, whoever at the county signed it. And then down here is going to be the AG signature and the state controller's signature. Some contracts don't need to go to the AG and state controllers. If they're less than $50,000, OSC doesn't need to sign it. So some of you won't have that signature there, and that's fine. All right. Next is 25 pages of the state master grant contract and the terms and conditions. So I'm not going to read it right now, but you certainly should. I'm going to skip through these 25 pages and go down to page 30. Okay, page 30 is where attachment A1 starts. This is the program or agency-specific terms and conditions. So you're going to want to read this as well. I haven't, but you should. It's 11 pages. So I know that I can skip down to page 41, and that's where my budget starts. So if I go back up to page 40, I can see here's the end of my attachment A1. Oops. Page 40 is the end of my attachment A1, and now I can go down to the next page. 41 is where my budget starts. So the first page is going to be the overall summary, and again, there's my 77,359, and here's my total 120,786. Which comes from this $50,000 in salary. So we've got these people here, and then what we're requesting here on the right. We've got our contractual, which I didn't fill anything out. Notice what's not here is that narrative. So remember, the narratives are only for you to type in the grant system, not into it won't show up in the contract. So here's my $10,000 for travel or whatever. Here's my equipment item, $20,000. I didn't have any space or property, rent or own. I had $17,359 of utilities. Now realize here, remember this one was not, there was a breakdown. It was $2,359 plus $15,000. So this doesn't show the breakdown between other funds and grant funds. That's fine. That's the way the State Comptroller's Office wanted it to show. So that's what's there. Same thing for operating, and then you'll see I had that additional $23,427 for other. So again, don't worry about the breakdown between county funded and state funded. It's all going to be in there in your details, and it's all in there on the first page. Okay, so then we get down to the work plan. The work plan includes a summary page, which we have left blank, we didn't do that yet, and a list of objectives, tasks, and performance measures. So remember I said there's another attachment in here, and we'll scroll down and look at that at the end, which is around page probably 80. But right now we're on page 52. So the way this was set up is that it's what's called a grant-defined work plan. So the state agency, the program, and the grant said that these are your objectives. You have a public awareness and child find objective, and the task of that objective is to establish a single point of entry for referral of children who are at risk for developmental delays, etc. And there's a performance measure. How do you measure that you've done that you achieved that goal at the end of this contract or the end of the quarters or end of the year? That's what you're going to have to fill out, because you can see it's blank right now. So we're going to give you guidance on how to fill it out, but I want you to know what we're going to fill out, where that ends up. So everything we're going to do here, objectives and tasks are filled out for you, and you need to provide us with the performance measure, which we've actually given to you, and you simply just need to copy and paste. So we'll get to that in a minute. So I just wanted you to realize what's going on here and what we're going to be filling out. And you can see it tells whoever's reading this contract, it says it's really specified in attachment E. Why do we have to go all the way down to attachment E to see the details of this? It's simply because of the amount of text that's allowed in these boxes, and we really wanted to get more detailed with it, which required having an additional attachment. So it's not that it's done some weird way to make you jump around in here. It's simply because there just wasn't enough text here to fill everything out. So I'm going to skip through that, and let's remember that for just a minute until we get to that last couple of pages. So here we are. This is Objective 2, called Family-Centered Services, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 tasks for that, okay? So the way the system works is there can be multiple objectives, which there are. Each objective can have one or many or several tasks, which in this case, this one has 10 tasks. So Objective 2 has 10 tasks. And each task can have one or many performance measures. In your case, it's only going to be one. Every task is just going to have one performance measure. All right, so we're down to Objective 3. Now let me go back to the gateway and show you what that looks like in our system. If I go down here to Work Plan Overview form, first of all, we can see the work plan period is blank. Okay, so you need to fill it out, and of course this is just for year 1, so it's going to be 10/1/2016 to 9/30/2017. Project summary. This is freehand for you to enter in here. So my suggestion is you write this down somewhere in a Word document, and you come back and you copy and paste it into here. So this is the details of your project, and you can see if we read this, provide a high-level overview of the project, including the overall goal and desired outcomes, include information such as location, target population, overall number of persons to be served, service delivery method, and hours of operation. So whatever I put here in this field is going to end up, if I was to preview the contract again, or once I look at the contract, it's going to end up, let me go back up a few pages, right here on the project summary on the overview page here. Okay, so it allows, I'm looking at the PDF now, I'm going to go back to the gateway. It allows up to 50,000 characters here, but that's a lot of detail. So please don't give us that much. That's like 12 pages in Word. You don't need to do that much. You need to be concise and clear, and you need to include everything, but it doesn't have to be very verbose. So I'm just going to put in here a bunch of information here, and let's say I've got a couple paragraphs and so on, okay? Organizational capacity, you can see this is a required field here, but it won't end up showing on the contract. If we go back to this PDF, there was nothing that I showed you that says organizational capacity. We still do want you to fill it out. Basically, this is saying, yeah, we're able to do this because we have this experience and we have these people in place. You can see it says describe the staffing, qualifications, and ongoing staff development or training activities and relevant experience of your organization. So here is my org capacity, and I'll just write a few sentences here. And I'll just hit save on this page. Now, obviously, it's not going to dynamically update this PDF, but once I fill it out, it will. We'll see that in a few minutes. Back to the gateway, I wanted to point something out. I just hit save. The system will time you out after 20 minutes of inactivity. So it sees inactivity as you simply just sitting here and typing. It doesn't know that you're typing. It only knows that something's new when you hit the button save. So you could be sitting here and typing in it, and then, or filling out your budget or your work plan or something like that, and you get a phone call. And you get on the phone, you start talking for a while, and then before you know it, 20 minutes has gone by. If you didn't save, you would have lost all the work that you have done without saving. So make sure that you save regularly. Don't wait the 20 minutes. I would say do it every 5 or 10 minutes. You should get a warning at around 17 minutes, but often that's unreliable based on the way the browsers work. And sometimes if you get the warning that says, hey, there's only 3 minutes left, it might be too late. So don't let it get that far. If you're typing in the system, save every 5 or 10 minutes. Now, when you're doing the budget, that's pretty easy because you're just going to be putting in your line item, hitting save, going to the next one, and every time you hit save, that restarts the clock, that 20-minute clock. But that's another reason why I say it's probably a good idea for you to copy and paste your project summary and your organizational capacity from, let's say, a Word document, than to actually sit here and type it out freehand. So I'm going to hit Save here, and just, again, remember to save periodically. I'm going to go back to the PDF and keep going through the work plan because I want to get to the bottom to attachment E to show you what that's all about. All right, so next in here is the payment and reporting schedule. That's attachment D. And this is what spells out how you're supposed to put in claims and when reports are due. So number one, you'll notice that there is no advance or initial payment. You can see they're left blank here, so there is no advance for these. So there's nothing here that would spell that out. The next page here is when claims are due. So you're expected to file claims on a quarterly basis, and the claims are due 30 days after the end of the quarter. Now, you're not in trouble if you don't do that, but that's the way the contract is spelled out, what we want you to do. This table does not refer to you because it does not apply to you. There's obviously no dates in here, but what this would do is refer to specific days that claims are on, if it wasn't based on calendar dates. Next is reporting provisions. So these are what types of reports are required by your organization and when. And you can see there's a narrative qualitative report. So 30 days after the end of each quarter, you owe a narrative qualitative report. 30 days after the end of the quarter, you owe a statistical quantitative report. So this webinar will not go into the details of those. The program will have those details, but just realize those are things that you'll have to do. You may be doing them in our system, or at least saving them into our system, or you may be doing it offline. I'm not sure about that yet. If you are doing it in our system, more training will come in, let's say, the next 2 months or so. Expenditure report, another thing that is due on a quarterly basis, again, no later than 30 days after the end of the quarter. All right, if we scroll down, progress-based reports, it would list whatever progress reports there are. And if we scroll down to the next page, we can see there are none. So you don't have to worry about any additional reports. If you did, they would be spelled out here on page 68 and 69, but that's not the case for you guys. And then finally, on the bottom of this section is this special payment and reporting provisions. So again, we talked about MWBE, the Minority Women in Business Entity goals for the state. Because of the way these contracts are in your municipality, they are not required here. So this changed the goals from 30% to 0%, effectively saying you don't have to adhere or you don't have to worry about that report there. So that's the last, or one of the last attachments here is MWBE. In your case, this line here nullifies that requirement. All right, so here's attachment E. This is the details of your project that we've told you, and we're telling whoever's reading this contract are going to be the details of it. So this is your mission. This is objective 1. So remember, if we go back to objective 1, public awareness in child find, that was there. However, there's a lot more detail here. So you can see that it gets a little bit more detailed. So that was what we wanted to point out here. This is what really you're agreeing to in your program when you're looking at attachment E here. Now, let's scroll down through it. I'm obviously not going to read all this. Again, the whole point of this webinar is to show you how to do things, not necessarily talk about the details of your contract. I'm going to scroll through it, though, and get down. You can see we've got more objectives, objective 6, 7. And then we get to attachment M. That's that MWBE attachment, which, of course, that one line in the contract says that it's not something you have to worry about. So that goes to the last page, and that's how we got to 83 pages of this contract. So we've talked about the work plan. We've looked at what some of the things are in it. I'm not going to go through the details of it, but we have to do some work in the Grants Gateway to satisfy the requirements there. So let's go back to the Gateway and look at what we need to do here in the work plan. So we have we've filled out our work plan overview form, and if we now go to the forms menu, we can either hover or click on the forms menu, and we can go to objectives and tasks, and we can see that there's 7 objectives. So if I go back to that attachment E, I'll look at it separately right here. We can scroll down, we know that there's 7 objectives here. There's objective 1, 2, and so on. So that's where the 7 objectives come from. Now, every objective has a task, and if we look down here, here's 7 tasks for objective number 1. Establish a single point of entry. I go back to this PDF, establish a single point of entry, okay? Disseminate public awareness materials. I go here, disseminate public awareness materials. On the right here, you can see is performance measures, where you would have to view or add the performance measure. The good thing is here, only the first one is required. You don't have to click on every single one. So if I click on View Add for number 1, this is where it's asking you to fill out some information. So it says, please complete the performance measure page. So what do you fill out here? Where do you get this information? We will provide you with that document, and I have to find out where it is. So I want to go show you one other part. Before we can fill this out, I want to show you one other part here. So we're in our performance measures, but we don't know what to fill out yet. Let's go back to our forms menu, and we'll scroll down here. And the details that you need to provide are right here in this pre-submission uploads. You can see it's right below the grant opportunity, the work plan. So I click on that, and we can see we've got 2 things here, the performance measures and a quick start guide. You don't have to worry about a quick start guide. It's just how to kind of work in the system. But here's the template for performance measures. I think I'm probably going to get an error because I'm in my staging system, but that's okay. We'll be able to look at it anyway. So you would click on click here, and I get the error, you won't, don't worry. I'm just going to take away these characters. So you would click on it, and it would ask you, do you want to save or open this file? I'll just click on open. So here's attachment 1. Oh, I already did have it open here, by the way, but anyway, that's how you get it. So these are your performance measures. So we've got objective 1, tasks 1 through 11. The performance measure name is going to be public awareness and child find, and the narrative is that you will comply with all requirements in the work plan as developed by the department for tasks 1 through 11. Okay? But the thing is, the system makes you fill it out. So you would come here, copy that, and we're going to go back to my forms menu. We're going to go back to the work plan. We're going to go down to the work plan here. We're going to go to objectives and tasks, and under public awareness and child find, we're going to click on view add for number 1, and we've got the performance measure name. I'm going to go back to the PDF and copy this. And hit save. Okay? I can now go back to the forms menu. You can see we're stuck on performance measure, on the 1 performance measure. So how do I get back? You have to actually click on forms menu, go back down to that section, go back to public awareness and child find, and then you can see I've done this 1, and I now need to go to 2, 3, 4. Now I don't think they're required. Let me just double check here. They are not. So I'm going to ask for a little clarification here. If someone from the program is on here, they can type it. But I want to just double check here. If we look here, right. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so these are for objectives. So you do not need to enter, I don't need clarification, we've got it. You don't need to enter a performance measure for number 2, 3, 4, and so on. Only the first one. So again, I went to objective 1, and these tasks here, I don't have to put a performance measure for each one. If we look here at the next one, it just goes on to objective 2 and tasks 1 through 10. Okay, so how do we get to objective 2? Well, that's right here. I can go to the next one, which is family-centered services. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'll go to Family-Centered Services, hit Go. I'll go to the View Ad for the first performance measure, and I'll call it just what they're telling me to call it, Family-Centered Services. I'll go back to this PDF, and I'll take this and hit Save. All right, again, sadly, you have to go back to the main Forms menu page, back all the way down, click on Objectives and Tasks, and I don't know which one I'm on, so I'll just click on the first one. And next, we're going to go to Child Outcomes. Well, this one has actually 2 of them for tasks 1 through 4 and tasks 1 through 3. Okay, so here's Child and Family Outcomes. We'll click Go. All right, so we've got tasks here, and we're going to go to the performance measure, click on View Ad. All right, so we're going to go back to our PDF, and we're going to call this Child Outcomes. And we're going to take this and this narrative and hit Save. Now, you'll notice it's asking for, or it's telling us we need to do a second one for tasks 1 through 3 for family outcomes in the SSIP. How do I do that? Well, we've got an Add button here. So I can add a second performance measure here. So if I click on Add, I've now got a blank performance measure. You can see it's telling us which one we're still on. We're on Objective, Child and Family Outcomes. And we're going to go to Performance Measure Name. And we're going to take this. And we're going to go to Narrative. And we're going to take that. And I'll hit Save. Okay, so somebody asked, well, what about the other tasks? I don't know. So hopefully there'll be some clarity from the program about that. And I didn't even look at them. Maybe they're just, let's see, what are they? So we go back to the Forms menu and go back to that. And this one had tasks 5, 6, and 7. I'm not exactly positive here. I'm not positive at all. So we'll ask for the program to clarify that. Okay, but we're going to move down to Objective 4, which is Service Delivery and Natural Environments. So let's go back up here, Service Delivery and Natural Environments. And you'll notice this drop down, by the way, it's not in order of the number, it's in alphabetical order. Although, no, it's not, because A comes before F. I think it's in the order of when they entered it, but it's okay here because, of course, it all matches with the PDF. So we're going to go to View Ad, and give it the name, go back to my PDF, and take this. And hit Save. So it's a lot of repetition. I know it seems like why are you doing this work because it's already kind of been done for you, but it's just the way the system works. Often, the majority of applications and contracts have what's called a grantee-defined work plan, which is a little different, where you're telling us, this is what I'm going to do with this grant. It's a little different here in this one, which is why it's laid out this way. All right, which one were we on? We just did service delivery. Now we're going to do number 5, which is delivery transportation. Okay, going to go here, go to delivery of transportation, and click on View Ad. Someone just had a good question. I think that's what he was asking. Let me just double check. Yeah, so someone asked, will it preload for subsequent years? Yeah, that's a good thing, is that it will take these work plan details from year 1, and next year when we're filling it out, it'll be there for you already. So if year 2 is the same, that's good, you won't have to make any changes. If it's not, obviously you would have to make some changes. All right, so I've done that one. Back to Forms menu, back to the bottom. What am I going to do next? Transition. Go to Transition. Go to my first one here. Take this, paste it, and we've got one more to do. Back to the Forms menu, back to the bottom, and finally we are on Admin. So I can hover, I can click on Administration, click on View Ad here, and copy this right here. Okay, I'll hit Save. Now let's see, I don't even know what's on this other page. Okay, that's it. So that's the details of this attachment 1 here. Again, let me just quickly show you how to get there because I know it's new to you. So you're in the Forms menu, and you need to fill out your objectives, task, performance measures. The objectives and tasks are done for you already. You do need to provide the performance measures. So how do we do that? You go down here to the very bottom or near the very bottom, and there's the pre-submission uploads. In this section is the support document that you need. You would click on Click Here for the template and download that PDF we were just looking at, and you'll use that to copy and paste the details of your objectives, tasks, or really of your performance measures for each task. So I know that's a bit convoluted. It's just the way, the whole point of it is we need this stuff to be in the contract. So that's it for the details here. Nothing else that we fill out will show up on the contract. Now there is one other folder here that I want to point out, and it's called the Grantee Document folder. So if there's something else that you need to provide here, for instance, instructions or details here, you can click on it and look at it here. I think there's a little disconnect between what the program wanted, so we'll have to check on that. I think they had put something in here, but they didn't realize that it would show there. So the instructions and the other form is not there. So I'll talk about that in a few minutes. If we look at pre-submission uploads, there's only the performance measures. Okay, so let me show you one other thing here. I'm going to go back to where we just were. So what's happening here is the Grantee document folder is you can provide any other attachment that you need to. Now, there's one other thing that we want you to provide, and that's this vendor contact update form. We want you to make sure that we know who we can contact for this. So you can see here's the different contact information. It's just a Word doc that you can fill out. And what you would do is you would fill it out. I'm going to just save it here. And I'm going to just say my contact form. I'm going to save it. If you want, you could even save it as a PDF. So I save it as a Word doc, but you could save it as a PDF. That's fine too. And you would come here to this Grantee document folder. You'd put in contact form, and you'd go find that document. Right here. And you don't have to put in comments if you don't want, but you hit save. So I've now saved that, and it's now part of this My Contract documents. So it doesn't become part of the contract, it just stays with this contract in the Forms menu for the life of the contract here. Okay, so you do need to fill and upload that document. The disconnect here is that document, I think, was intended to be something that you could download directly from the system, but that's not the case. But we'll work on getting that to you guys. Okay, so I filled everything out in my Forms menu. I've gone through here, and gone through all the different pages and filled out what I needed to. But let's look at the contract now with that additional information that we had. So this preview that we had here before, we're going to look at it now again with our work plan information in it. So I'm going to go up to, or go down to, I should say, contract preview. So again, I'm still in the forms menu. Click on contract preview. It's generating that PDF on the fly here. Again, there's not going to be any signatures in it. Everything is going to look exactly the same except for what we looked at for the work plan. All right, so I'm going to open it. And I'm going to go down to the work plan, which is probably around page, let's say, 65-ish. Let's keep going. Oh, no, it's up higher. Right here. So in our case, in my case, it starts at page 51. All right. So remember we filled out that, going too fast now. Remember we filled out our work plan overview. So here's that project summary and all that text that I wrote here, the details of my project. Next is the work plan detail. Objective 1, task 1, and there's that performance measure. So this is the name, and this is the description that we gave it, or the narrative. So each one will have a name-narrative. Now notice there's nothing for task 2, 3, 4 through 11 here, because of course that's the way that one was set up. We go down to the next one, family-centered services. There we have performance measure 1 there. Go on to the next one. Remember this one, child and family outcomes had 2 lines. So that's where we have the 2 lines, one performance measure and its description, and another and its description. Okay, so again, they're all referencing the attachment E, which is down here, starting on page 70. Okay, so I hope that explains that part of it. I know it's a bit, it's a lot of things you have to kind of remember there, but obviously the outcome is the fact that you now have all that information in a contract. Okay, so I'm back to the Grants Gateway, and I've done everything I need to. I've entered in all that information, and I've previewed it, and I'm happy with it, and all those required fields are not missing. I haven't done anything that's missing a field. You know what, let's actually do that. I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a simple error. I'm going to go here to project site addresses, or actually I'll go here, back to the program-specific questions. And I'm going to forget to fill out the title for some reason. All right, so let's say I forgot to fill it out. I hit save. It's going to give me an error, and I'm going to ignore that error and not realize that it's there. Okay, so now I'm going to send it back to the program manager. I think I'm done with everything. I'm going to go send it to the program manager. So I'll go to status changes, and I can apply the status of contract information submitted. I click apply, and wait a minute, I get an error. Obviously, you know what that error is because I forgot to fill that one thing out, but that's the whole point here. The system won't let you send it back to the state until you've filled out everything that's required. It doesn't know that it's right that you filled out. It just knows that there's something there. So I could go back here and go through the forms menu, or I can just directly click on the error and realize, oh, that's right, I forgot to fill this out. Type it in and hit save. Okay, so I've hit save here, and now if I send it back to contract info submitted, it'll work. I'm going to do one more thing before I do that, though. And you remember I pointed out before this management tools, add, edit people. What if I want to make it easier for my signatory, someone at my county, the county executive or whoever's signing it, what if I want to make it easier for her or him to find this contract? Remember, they could, when they get it, they could go up to contracts and search for it, but let's just make it easier on them and make it a task for them. And that you can do here under Management Tools, Add, Edit People. So I go here and I see all the people that are part of my organization, all these bogus names here, but this one person, Jeff Signatory, he's the guy I want to sign it. He's our county executive. So I can check on his name and hit save, and this will now become a task for him. So there's nothing he needs to do now, but in a few minutes, obviously in the real world it's going to be a few days or weeks maybe, but in a few minutes he's going to have a task now to sign the contract. So I can now go back and do a status change and apply the status of contract info submitted. So I click on that, and it's gone. So if I click on details, it's no longer something I can work on because it's in the status of Program Manager review. If I go back, I'm still the grantee. If I go back, go down to one of those pages that I've changed, like the program-specific questions, and I change something here, doesn't matter because there's no save button. I can't make any changes now. It's no longer in a status that I could. All right, so now on a regular basis, your program manager is logging in and checking for any tasks that they have, and they see that mine came in. So they're going to go and they're going to log in. Now, obviously, this is not something you would do. This is what the program manager at the Department of Health is doing. And she's logging in here, and she sees that she's got tasks, and one of her 6 tasks is going to be the one that she received from you today. And here it is. On 11/9, she received this in Program Manager Review. And she's going to click on it, and she's going to go look at all those things that you just did. And let's say that she's happy with it, and she'll move it on forward. If she's not, she can go to Status Change and kick it back to you, and hopefully she'll give you a comment that says, hey, you need to fix this. That just made me think of one thing that I want to mention to somebody, mention to all of you, but somebody had asked, let's see, I forget what page it was, I think it was here. Somebody had asked, well, what about the note here? This is add note. You can ignore that add note. It's a feature in the system that doesn't exactly work as we intended yet, so we're saying don't bother using it. In the future, you'll be able to click on it and add a note between you and the program, or something for you to remember for yourself, or to kind of communicate back and forth to the program. It doesn't work as intended just yet, and it's something that, because of some of the other things that we're trying to implement here, we've kind of put it on the back burner. So don't worry about the add note. That will not allow you to add an additional salary narrative or something like that. You simply need to just fit whatever you can in the 4,000 characters. Okay? So I'm going to, as the program manager, I'm going to send it to my contract manager and have her or him review it, and they would do the same thing we just looked at. They would look at it, preview it, do whatever is required. If there's any changes needed, they would send it back to the program manager or back to you. Eventually, we're all happy. We all say, yep, looks good. We are now ready to get this contract signed. So I'm going to log in as the contract manager now, and the contract manager has some tasks, and she opens it up, and she sees the one from yours today on 11/9, and she'll click on it, and she will go to the status of Grantee Contract Signature Required. So if you remember back to the beginning of our webinar here and to that status, that's the second status that you would inherit. So we're going to click on Apply Status for that, and it's now going to send it to your organization. So a couple things are going to happen. Number one, it's going to save that application version as a PDF. You'll see that in a few minutes. And number two, it's going to allow you to save it and send it as a task to that contract signatory. So that's now happened. I'm now going to log in. You know what, I'm going to log in as the grantee to prove to you that the grantee can't sign it. So I'll log in as this person. You can see I don't have any tasks because, of course, a signature would not be a task of mine. I would go to contracts and search for it, and I can find it. It's at Grantee Contract Signature Required status, and of course I cannot sign it because I'm a grantee. If I go to Status Change, there's no option for me to sign it. Okay, well that was as intended. Let's log in as your executive or whoever's going to sign it. So that's J Signatory, and he logs in here. And you know what? I was waiting for that. An email has come to me as well. Your contract has reached the status of Grantee Contract Signature Required. Please log into the gateway and view and complete your task. That is really a good reason for you to add that person in that view add add people. So it's a really good reason to do that because they will get an email that says your contract is now ready to sign. Okay, and I've logged in as my signatory, and in fact, I do have a task now. And I can look at my task, and I can see it's Grantee Contract Signature required for our contract we've been working on. So I click on the contract link, and your executive probably will want to go through and review everything as well. They don't need to go through everything in the Forms menu, though. They can simply go to Forms menu, go to the very bottom here, and go to Contract Versions. So remember before that we looked at Contract Preview. Well, now we don't need to because a contract version has been saved here. Right here is this PDF. Now, I'm not going to click on it because it looks exactly like what we saw. I'll click on it in a minute after I sign it. So how do I sign it? Status change, you can see Grantee Contract Signature complete. Next year, you'll be dealing with a new period. Maybe you'll be dealing with a modification. And if I didn't want to, let's say I looked at it and there's something that's completely wrong or whatever, maybe I've got a typo in my program summary and I want to change it, I can send it back to the contract manager, which will open it up, allow people to make changes, and then it'll have to be sent back to me. I'm not going to do that, though. I am going to sign it. I'll click on Apply Status. And it gives you this little agreement that says, yes, I am who I say I am. I'm allowed to sign on behalf of my organization. We will comply with any MWBE goals, et cetera. So I'm not going to read this now, but you will. You haven't given your ID and password to somebody else, and so on. If I clicked on I do not agree, it's not going to cancel your contract or anything. It's just going to bring you back to the previous page and let you come back here another day or another time. But I am going to click on I agree, which will sign my contract. So another thing that I want everybody to realize is you can see the spinning icon up here. Please wait for this to finish. Sometimes people end up hitting the back button or some other button while that's going through, and it kind of messes up the statuses a little bit, something that we have to fix. It takes us 5 seconds to fix, but we shouldn't have to. Just make sure everybody realizes while it's processing, just let it go and let it refresh, and now it's refreshed. And how do I know that's been signed? A couple of ways. One, if I go to details, it's now in a different status called Contract Package Validation. Two, if I go home, that task doesn't exist for me anymore. It's no longer a task for my organization. So I want to show you one last thing here. We'll go back to the contract, actually two last things. We'll go back to the contract. I'm going to go search for it. We're going to go find the one we just did, which is this one in contract, where it is Contract Package Validation. I'm going to click on it. Two things I want to show. Number one is that contract version now has a signature on it. If I go to the Forms menu, go to the bottom, click on Contract Versions, you can see Jeff's signatory signed it at 11:45 and 24 seconds. So I click on it, and here's that version he signed. So here it is without a signature. Here's his version. Eventually the agency will sign it, and we'll have a PDF there, and so on. So if I click on this one, it's going to look exactly the same as what we've been dealing with, except for page 4 will now have my signature. And the signature, again, is simply just my name, my title, and the date that I signed it. So again, behind the scenes is the fact that this is all a legally binding contract, and an electronic signature is acceptable because we're on a secure website with a secure username and ID, and it was verified and all that information. So that's what's happening here. That's a signed contract now. Eventually it'll go through those other stages, and the other signatures will appear on here until it becomes an executed contract. You would get an email then that says your contract's been executed. So that's the one last thing I want to show, and then one more is if I go back to the home page, which remember menu will allow us to do, I wanted to point out this period schedule report. So it's a little PDF report that says this is a schedule that was set up for your contract, and here's where we are in the process of that schedule. So I click on it, it's going to ask me to open up a PDF. I say open, and I can go here, I'll just zoom in for you all. And you can see what has happened is, so Program Manager Review, they scheduled 7 days for it. Or I'm sorry, they scheduled 20 days for it. It actually took 0 days because I just got it today and did it. Obviously, it's going to take a little longer in your case. So that's for the program manager to fill out things. For you, you've got 7 days. Now, the good thing is they didn't take the full 20 days to do the program manager, so some of that can be added to your 7, but you do technically have 7 days to work on this. Now, you're not in trouble if it takes you 8 days or 15 or 20 days, but the whole point of this is we want to get these contracts executed as quick as we can. We're already behind schedule. You know, October 1st was the date that we're targeting here, and here it is November 9th. So we want to get these done as soon as possible. But just realize what's built into the schedule here. We have 7 days for that. We have 7 days for contract manager review. We have the signatory. We have 5 days for your executive to sign it. We have 5 days for the contract manager to do their thing, and so on. So it adds up to 94 days of total days if everybody took the amount of scheduled days that we put into the schedule. We're hoping that it'll be less. In reality, some may be more, but we're just trying to, implore you to please try to work on these as quickly as you can so we can have you in hand with a signed, executed contract.